Hello and happy St. Patrick's Day. If that's a thing that you celebrate and welcome and take joy out of, have fun. Enjoy today, and I hope it's a great one and that you don't drink too much is the other thing that happens a lot on St. Patrick's Day. I am happy to have you joining me. I've got the great Bill Boyle stopping by later on after I bring you the news and headlines from yesterday. I've got a whole bunch of sound bites as well. So that is what I have for you today. It's a great conversation with Bill Boyle. We were live last night on YouTube, and you can watch it there at Stand Up with Pete. Bill and I started talking about 42 minutes into today's show. How are you doing? How are you taking all of this in? What are your big concerns here in the middle of March? Hope to talk with you on Thursday night to hang out to hear more from you. You can always email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. I heard from our friend Paul Wesley, piano tuner Paul, North Carolina, read his latest Substack update, which is kind of his journal, his health recovery journal from having esophageal cancer and a major surgery. He's got all kinds of tubes coming out of him, but he did get to eat Jersey Mike's and kind of whatever he wants. So he sees hope and light, and it was great to hear from Paul. But he emailed me and said, "Hey, Pete, maybe don't put like all three guests on one show. It was a lot." Yeah, yesterday I had three guests. It's because I talked to three people Thursday and then Friday, and I wanted to share them all with you, but I couldn't do it from my parents' house. Long story short, had some technical issues, and so I shared them all yesterday. Put them all there, and all three of those conversations are great. Sorry, I forgot to put the time codes in at the top of the show. Happy to have you here today. Let's get to the news and clips that I brought for you. And I can't do any of it without your support. I have no ads on this show, no advertisements, no annoying ads that you need to fast forward through, just these plugs for your paid subscription. Go to patreon.com/Pete Dominic. That is how I get paid. If you enjoy this show, I put it out every day. We have almost 750 paid subscribers. Some very generous people out there. You can pay as little as $5 or as much as you want. You can always consider paying more if you're getting a lot out of it. Say you're listening to the show every day, you're become part of our community, join us at our hangouts, and hopefully in person in Las Vegas, April 9th through 12th at Podjam 3. It looks like Wajid Ali is going to join us. Very, very excited. It's coming together just about less than a month away now. So hope to see you there. All right. Time for the shit show. Headlines and sound.
It's Pete's Headlines and Clip Show. Get in on the shit show.
All right, John Carroll, thank you very much. Day 18 of the U.S.-Israeli invasion and war on Iran. What is happening on day 18 of the U.S.-Israel attacks? You could call it the Trump war. Some people call it the Trump war, but it's the U.S. The rest of the world sees it as the U.S., unfortunately. And the rest of the world, by the way, not joining us, not helping out, even though you now see and hear Gasolini begging them and demanding help, and then saying he doesn't need their help. It was a very confusing press conference yesterday where he basically had it all ways within 2 minutes. Anyway, the U.S. and Israel continue to attack across Iranian cities as the conflict spreads to the region and causes a global energy crisis. Al Jazeera says the United States-Israel war in Iran continues to intensify as attacks on multiple cities kill civilians, including a newborn baby and his 2-year-old sister in Arak City. The conflict has spread as Iran has retaliated against U.S. assets in neighboring countries, while Israel has carried out bombing in southern Lebanon against the Iran-backed Hezbollah armed group. The wars pushed oil prices sharply higher, disrupted shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, and displaced millions of civilians across the region. An Amnesty International investigation found that the U.S. is responsible for the attack that killed at least 170 people, including more than 160 girls at that primary school, of course, in Iran. But that's news because now it's a separate investigation, Amnesty International doing their own there. A series of large explosions were reported in northern Tehran following earlier attacks on central Tehran and other parts of the Iranian cities. the Iranian president says has defended Tehran's right to self-defense, saying Iran did not start the war and will not surrender to, quote, bullies. At least 1,444 people have been killed, 18,551 injured by U.S.-Israeli attacks on Iran since February 28th, according to the Iran Health Ministry. Who knows whose numbers to trust about any of this? We're not being told the truth about our own military. Apparently, hundreds, over 200 have been injured. It's hard to know the extent of those injuries. And back here at home, Orange Julius Caesar has stepped up pressure on the UK and France in particular to help secure shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran has shut down, sending global oil prices soaring. But European leaders are rejecting him. Germany said it had no intention of joining the U.S.-Israeli war. European Union foreign policy chief noted that European nations have no appetite to send troops. I talk about it more with Bill Boyle coming up. Yesterday, phony soprano said that Iran is simply, they're a paper tiger. We're a paper tiger. They weren't a paper tiger, but now they're a paper tiger. Vice President J.D. Vance said he supported Trump's action despite his reluctance towards previous U.S. military interventions. He said, we have a smart president, whereas in the past we had dumb presidents. I trust President Trump to get the job done, to do a good job for the American people. Oh, okay. All right. In the past, it was just dumb presidents that he didn't support. Trump announced that he also asked to delay his upcoming trip to China by a month. The trip was originally scheduled for the end of March, but the Lion King explained that he needs to remain in the U.S. while the conflict is ongoing because we've got this war going on. It's just, I have a lot of golfing that I got to get done during the war because that's what he's been doing. It's just disgusting. If it was any other president, people would be righteously outraged. The war has severely disrupted global financial and energy markets, with crude oil prices surging past about 50% since the U.S.-Israeli joint attacks began. Brent crude recently hit $106 per barrel. Incidentally, I went to college with a kid named Brent Crude. Japan said it was beginning the release of its strategic oil reserves after the International Energy Agency indicated earlier that the release would begin in Asia and Oceania before other regions. Where's Oceania? That's what Al Jazeera refers to. Oh, it's like Australia and New Zealand, Micronesia, Polynesia. All right. Okay. All right. I'm learning things. Thank you, Al Jazeera. All right. That is the war report for day 18. Obviously, a lot more details in a lot of other countries I didn't mention, but the second, third, and fourth order effects of this invasion and war are the ripple is just continuing, obviously, across the region and the globe. Back here at home, we heard more nonsense and craziness from our madman leader, Teddy Roosevelt, who said he would take Cuba yesterday. That's a direct quote. He said, yeah, I'll take it. If I want it, I'll take it. I can do anything I want, is basically what he said, because he's the worst impression of an authoritarian king we've ever seen. I mean, it is a caricature of an authoritarian king. I'll take it. I'll take whatever I want. I'll do whatever I want. I know in my bones I don't have to listen to anybody. I'll take whatever I want, is what we knew he did because he had been accused of it by over like 20 women. So that's the kind of person that he is, and he thinks he's the only person, apparently. Well, back here at home, should mention that the courts don't agree with that necessarily. And big news yesterday, a federal judge in Massachusetts blocked the Trump administration from implementing a series of vaccine decisions made by crazy old horsetooth Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The judge is a Biden appointee. He suggested in his ruling that the government did not base its decisions on science. How about that? A judge strikes down Kennedy's vaccine policies. The ruling, which the administration is almost certain to appeal, halted changes Kennedy has set in motion. They include his decisions to cut down on the number of vaccines recommended to children and restrict access to COVID vaccines. The judge's move also reversed, for now, all decisions made by the panelists that Kennedy appointed to the new Vaccine Advisory Committee. This is a huge news. This ruling came in response to a lawsuit brought by 6 medical organizations. The groups argued that Kennedy and his appointees had made arbitrary and capricious changes to childhood vaccine schedules. So big news yesterday there. We'll see what happens on appeal. If the Supreme Court will overturn that, it remains to be seen. All right. Well, what else do I have for you? Border Patrol official and Keebler elf Nazi Greg Bavino is retiring. He's most widely recognized for leading this authoritarian regime's immigration crackdown. Guess what? He's going to retire at the end of the month. And, well, it was clear after Minnesota that his professional future was not bright. He's done, as we said he was. He's been demoted. He's been fired. And that's as a result of brave people losing their lives and others in Minneapolis and other parts of this country standing up every day. That is a good thing. Yeah. All right. Well, in Ukraine, a combined missile and drone attack on the Kiev region killed at least 4 people and wounded at least 15 overnight into Saturday. That's where, by the way, where Sean Penn was. Wasn't at the Academy Awards where he was winning the Academy Award for playing a guy based on people like Bavino at Border Patrol. He was in Ukraine with Zelensky. The guy's pretty hip. And some 200,000 immigrant truck drivers will begin to lose their commercial driver's license as they expire under a new Trump administration rule that takes effect this Monday. Whether the White House understands it or not, this is likely to push consumer prices higher. I think it's fair to say. Just read that the University of Florida's college Republicans, you know what I'm going to say, because young Republicans, college Republicans, stories across the country keep coming out that they are found out that many of their members are basically Nazis. And the Florida College Republican chapter was disbanded after a finding that some of its members had violated a statewide organization's rules, including making anti-Semitic gestures. Sure wish reports like that were not as common as they are, but that's pretty terrible and sadly pretty predictable. The Justice Department yesterday, or rather Friday, moved to dismiss charges against a veteran who set an American flag on fire across the street from the White House following an executive order seeking to crack down on flag burning. How about that? Apparently, you can't just change federal laws through executive order, even though you keep trying. And best wishes for a speedy recovery to White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, who has breast cancer but is going to stay in her role as she gets treatment, according to President Quid Pro Comb-Over. All right, those are the headlines that I've gathered for you. I'm sure I missed many. Send them to me. What are you paying attention to? Who are your sources? StandUpWithPete@gmail.com is my email. Now let's get to the sound from yesterday. I got a whole bunch of good and bad clips, including comedy, which I like to start and end with. Let's start with Colbert.
On Friday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told us there's no problem with Iran blocking the Strait of Hormuz, except for one problem.
The only thing prohibiting transit in the straits right now is Iran shooting at shipping. It is open for transit should Iran not do that.
Yes, that is ironclad logic. Good news, Miss Nichols. Your husband's surgery went perfectly. He should be ready to take home as soon as he's done at the crematorium. Hegseth also got mad that the media has been accurately reporting what's happening.
Another example of a fake headline that I saw yesterday. War widening. Here's a real headline for you for an actual patriotic press. How about Iran shrinking, going underground?
And here's another fake headline. Secretary Hegseth visibly agitated, alcohol on breath. Here's a real one. Here's a real one for a patriotic press. Secretary Hegseth named Diamond member of TGI Fridays Tequila Honors Program. Okay? It's the same story. Okay? You got a problem, bro? You got a problem? Pete, if there's no worries about the strait, how come Trump posted this on Saturday? Hopefully China, France, Japan, South Korea, the UK, and others that are affected by this artificial constraint will send ships to the area so that the Hormuz Strait will no longer be a threat by a nation that has been totally decapitated. I wish him lots of luck with that. Trump turns all of our allies against us, and now he's begging their help. It's like that classic children's book, The Boy Who Cried, You, everybody, then kicked a wolf.
They were lit up on a Monday night at the Ed Sullivan Theater in New York. That's Colbert, of course, very funny. And now also on Monday night is when Rachel Maddow works one night a week. It's like $30 million. Come on, she does special projects. When I criticize Rachel Maddow, people get mad. Sorry, Leslie. Leslie Noble's a big fan. Who else? A lot of you are, but I don't love how she connects dots, but here she is connecting dots. I think she's probably pretty right about this one. She certainly is amused by her presentation of it. Here it is.
So the Saudis paid $2 billion to Trump's son-in-law, Jared. And now Jared is the U.S. government's point person in the Middle East. The New York Times now reports that while Jared is serving as the U.S. government's point person in the Middle East, Jared is simultaneously asking the Saudis for yet more billions of dollars for his private business. More than $2 billion they've already given him. Now he wants more. You know what? Why would they say no? For the low, low price of what they've already given him, the Saudis have apparently discovered the price of renting out something called the Armed Forces of the United States of America to attack their rival nation, Iran.
Very long pause here.
For a war that makes a lot of sense for the leaders of Saudi Arabia and Israel, but makes no sense at all for the United States.
I feel like this is a long pause, too.
The New York Times reports this weekend that the Saudi Crown Prince, MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, has been on the phone frequently with President Trump since the war started, telling him to keep bombing, keep, quote, hitting the Iranians hard. Keep it up. More of this war. Right? We paid for it. We're going to get what we paid for.
1, 2, 3.
I got to say, I don't know why this isn't more of a show-stopping scandal in our country, right? Is it that hard to see what this is? I mean, here's this guy actively asking X country for money. They've already given him billions of dollars. He's asking for billions more dollars for his personal business, his private business. He's asking X country for money. At the same time he's asking them for money, he is also making U.S. government policy toward that country. That's it, right? Those are all the dots you have to connect. I mean, this is not like string theory, right? The result, I mean, if this guy's asking this country for money for himself while also making U.S. government policy toward that country, the resultant policy is likely to be whatever that country wants it to be. Because if it isn't, then Jared's going to be less likely to get the money that he is asking them for, right? The interests of the United States are being exchanged for private income for the president's son-in-law. Is this hard to see? Is this hard to grasp? Right? While we're all wondering why it is really that we're fighting this war they can't explain. I mean, for his part, the president's son-in-law says he's following the law and following ethics rules, but how would we know? They also aren't even making him file financial disclosures.
All right. I'm such a dick, and I apologize for interrupting her and being critical of her, because those are all really good points. I think we should be paying attention to that. That kid, Jared Kushner, is the dirtiest. He's bad. He's just bad news, always has been. His dad's bad news. And so, okay, there you go. Thank you, Rachel. Sorry for being a dick. Let's move on to Stuart Stevens, who is on MS Now, former Republican turned good guy now. Stuart Stevens was on talking about character and why it should matter as the president. Specifically, they were referring to the fact that yesterday, our disgusting commander-in-chief basically outed the private health diagnosis of the Republican congressman. You probably saw that clip. Anyway, here's Stuart Stevens' take on his lack of character and why it should matter.
This affects the country because the president is more than just the chief executive. We used to say this all the time. This was said when Bill Clinton was going through these scandals, that he represents something that is bigger, that the country aspires to. And I just have to say, you know, I just got back from Ukraine, and you compare the leaders of these two countries and their character and what it means for the national identity of Ukraine to have a leader they can look up to with courage, and what it does to America to have this absolute, just horrible person as president of the United States. This is something that is not going to change rapidly. It's why you see these groups and Republicans, or these young Republicans that are up there with all this neo-Nazi, pro-Hitler stuff. This stuff sticks with us. And it's as soon as we can get beyond it. But I just asked my old Republicans I helped elect, really? Is this who you are? You can't speak out against this? And the answer consistently has been no, they can't. They're afraid to.
All right. Stuart Stevens. thought that was pretty good. How about this caustic take from the academic writer, author, and becoming more polemic John Mearsheimer, who's always been critical of the Israel lobby here in the U.S. and only becoming more outspoken as the years have rolled on and as Israel destroyed Gaza and committed genocide there. Well, here's John Mearsheimer shitting on America, saying we're the worst, according to a paper from the Lancet. And I thought you might be interested in hearing this, as upsetting as it is.
We are an incredibly ruthless country. The amount of murder and mayhem that we've created around the world is just unbelievable. You know, I was looking at a study the other day put out by Lancet, which is a scientific journal, and they did a study. This was put out, you can see it on the internet. It was put out in November of 2025. And what the article did was it looked at sanctions, American sanctions, from 1971 to 2021. 1971 to 2021. And it asked what were the consequences of those sanctions. And we murdered 38 million people. 38 million people. The amount of havoc we have wrought on the Middle East in recent years is just stunning. You think about the consequences of the Iraq War, what we do in places like Venezuela, Cuba, Iran. You understand we're using this tremendous economic leverage we have to basically starve people, to make them suffer, to inflict great punishment on them so that they'll rise up against their government. You understand that this is what we're doing in Venezuela. This is what we're doing in Iran. We're inflicting massive punishment on these people. Given all that, I find it very difficult to talk about the United States as a noble country. I just don't think that we are exceptionally virtuous when it comes to foreign policy.
Yes. Well, hard to disagree with a lot of that. You could counter it. You could push back on it. You could say those numbers aren't accurate. But what are your thoughts? All right. Well, here is Josh Rogan of the Washington Post on CNN yesterday doing some analysis about strategy with this stupid war. Strategery.
I think the European countries are going to come and bail Trump out of this mess. I think you have to think about the context here. Trump just spent a year hurting their economies on purpose, threatening to attack NATO, threatening to pull out of NATO, and then they started this war, the Trump administration started this war without even bothering to consult them, didn't take their interests into account until he needed them, and their populations are at historic levels of anti-Americanism because of how we've treated them over the last year, and they're democracies, so I don't think their leaders are going to be able to overcome that, and why would they? It's much easier, and you'll see a bunch of countries doing this, to negotiate with the Iranians. The Iranians are setting up a system whereby they let the ships pass that they want to let pass. Just in the last 24 hours, they let several ships pass for countries that they're not at war with. So if you were any country in the world depending on this strait, it's much easier to make a deal with the Iranians than to send your ships down the strait to make them sitting ducks for the Iranian drones and missiles, which seems crazy reckless.
Yeah, crazy reckless indeed. Speaking of European leaders, here is the Prime Minister of the UK. It's Keir Starmer. Sorry about the little background noise on the audio here, but good stuff.
And I want to make one final point. Because moments like this also tell you about leadership. Whether to commit British troops to military action is the most serious responsibility for any Prime Minister. I have been attacked by some for my decision not to join the offensive against Iran. But at every stage, I've stood by my principles. Principles which I held just as strongly when it came to debate about the Iraq War in 2003. Principles which I believe are shared by the British people. That our decision should be based on a calm, level-headed assessment of the British national interest. And that if we are to send our servicemen and women into harm's way, the very least they deserve is to know that they do so on a legal basis and with a proper, thought-through plan. Now, there are others who would have made a different decision 2 weeks ago. they would have rushed the UK headlong into this war without the full picture of what they're sending our forces into and without a plan to get us out. That is not leading, it's following. My leadership is about standing firm for the British interest, no matter the pressure. And I believe time will show that we have the right approach, right on the economy and the cost of living, right on defence and energy, and right on this war, in the best interests of the British people. Thank you.
All right. Was somebody doing the laundry in the background of that clip? All right, here is British commentator James O'Brien on the UK LBC radio show.
Leads me to the conclusion that Starmer should do as little as he possibly can, up to and including, or down to and including, nothing at all. Because Donald Trump is an idiot. He is a dangerous, delinquent idiot. We can dress it up as much as we want. We can talk about compromat. We can talk about Epstein. We can talk about the absence of a plan. We can talk about Benjamin Netanyahu having Donald Trump for reasons I don't fully understand or necessarily agree with, but Marco Rubio seemed to suggest that Netanyahu has him by the short and curlies. But all of that gets filed under idiot. He is an idiot. He is a dangerous, delinquent idiot who is now waging war in one of the world's most historically volatile tinderboxes, with no legal rationale, no plan, and no end objective. Leads me to the conclusion that Starmer should do as little as he possibly can.
Yes, good commentary. I liked it a lot. And I also like this from Bleach Blonde, Butch Body, Marjorie Taylor Greene on CNN.
There's a lot more video of what's happening in Lebanon, what's happening in Lebanon is horrific. There was basically a genocide on Gaza, and Gaza was completely destroyed. And it's just wrong to tell Americans or make Americans think that every single Palestinian in Gaza was a member of Hamas. That's just not true. There were tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians murdered by these bombs that were dropped on them. And now the same thing is happening in Lebanon. And you see a lot of that war coverage on what you can find it in the international news, where it's more difficult to find in American news. And, I think if we're not showing Americans what our tax dollars are being used for, and we send $3.8 billion to Israel, and if our money and our weaponry or any type of our ammunitions are being used to murder innocent people, especially women and children, I think that is just outrageous that the American people aren't told that. And so this is the type of coverage that I would like to see more of in the United States, because the American people deserve to know the truth.
Okie dokie. Wow. How about that? Marjorie Taylor Greene. Sounds like she's making a lot of sense there. And so does John Bolton, who's also on TV all the time, even though he was wrong about everything. This is his curmudgeon-y take. I really don't like this guy.
I think if you don't get regime change now, this military activity could be said to make the question worse. We've now got real evidence that closing the Strait of Hormuz can cause economic pain. And if the Ayatollahs and the Revolutionary Guard survive in power, they will go back to their nuclear weapons program. They will go back to increased international terrorism. That's the whole point of regime change, that the behavior of the people running the country now is not going to vary. Their ideology, their fanaticism drive them to do what they've been doing these past 47 years. Now, you either live with that, which I think is unacceptable, or you get rid of them.
Does that just mean the new Supreme Leader, Moshtaba Khamenei, whether he is alive or not? I mean, obviously he put out that statement before the United States says he's badly injured. Does that mean just him, get rid of him, or get rid of more?
I think you need to get rid of the Islamic Revolution. I think the people of Iran support it. I think there's overwhelming opposition to the regime. But another failure before the launch of hostilities was, as far as I can tell from the outside, an almost total lack of cooperation and assistance to the opposition inside the country. They're going to have a major role in causing cracks and fissures at the top of the regime and leading to its collapsing. And it's not clear to me that we're doing much of anything with the opposition.
I cut him off there. Sorry about that. I'm so sorry, John Bolton. All right, there you go. There's that. And here's another voice you won't like. It's the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, who was on CNBC. And, I mean, do you trust anything this guy says? How the hell did he get anywhere in life, honestly?
I think the risk and the fear that people I've spoken to on and off the record, the risk is that while the head of the snake in Tehran may have been cut off, there are IRCG bosses that have gotten personally very wealthy. They run little fiefdoms. They're rich off of control. And there's nothing to stop them from having a rocket-powered missile shooting it at a supertanker. Do we know as a nation who right now we are technically fighting? Because between the Houthis in the Red Sea, and I know the Department of War is its own thing, Mr. Secretary, but do we have an idea as to who we are fighting against right now?
Sure. Well, we know exactly who we are fighting against. And if you want to use kind of historical analogy, think they're in Hitler's bunker, but Hitler's dead. And now they have dispersed out. And one of the things I'm going to do is bust this myth that is in the mainstream media that there is this coherent Iranian plan, that they are a smoothly functioning government. First of all, the previous Ayatollah did not want his son to become the Ayatollah. He left written instructions, and they overrode him. We believe that the current Ayatollah is injured. We don't know to what extent, and maybe incapacitated. And they're just small bases. They're in the bunker. They are panicked, and like the circular firing that they are doing on their Gulf neighbors was a big mistake.
Oh boy, that's about enough as I could take from the old Bessent chamber. Okay, well, let's move on to one more clip on the issue, on the region, on the war. This is the Iranian foreign minister. His name is Abbas Araghchi. I believe I'm saying it right. He was on MS Now with Ayman Moyadeen.
Will the Straits of Hormuz remain closed so long as this war continues?
Well, as a matter of fact, the Strait of Hormuz is open. It is only closed to the tankers and ships belong to our enemies, to those who are attacking us and their allies. Others are free to pass. Of course, many of them prefer not because of their, security concerns. This has nothing to do with us. And at the same time, there are many tankers and ships who are passing through the Strait of Hormuz, and I can say that the strait is not closed, but it is only closed to American, Israeli, ships and tankers, and not to others.
Oh, okay. It was just closed for us. Thank you. That's super helpful. Clears that all up. How do they do that? How do they decide? It's just they look at the flag? I'm sure it's more than that. Okay. Well, now it's time to get to a couple of clips that are not about this, but are more general. One is a conversation between Mehdi Hasan and Katie Fang. I think this is like 2 weeks old because it's right after the State of the Union. But I thought it was relevant to play as we go to vote for primaries. Do you want to consider the Democrat that you're voting for's stance on how they will hold this administration accountable, unlike Democrats of the past, including Barack Obama and his administration? I thought this was an interesting back and forth from two smart people I know and respect, wanted to share it.
I ask a lot of Democrats who come on the show, like, if you get office again, if you get power in Congress, if you win back the White House, are you going to do what Barack Obama did in 2009, which is, we're not going to look back, we're going to look forward. He didn't prosecute the CIA torturers. He didn't prosecute Bush and Cheney for what they did. He didn't prosecute the Wall Street big bankers. Is the next Democratic administration actually going to come and hold these people to account?
I have now, well, I'm curious to hear what they're telling you. I have now gotten to the point where I've explicitly stated that my platform and the ability to amplify your message, maybe even your campaign, if you are not committed to accountability hearings from day one, then I won't support you. Yeah. I think I hate to be very blunt, I don't think the entirety of the Democratic Party is ready for that. I think when you're being told by Hakeem Jeffries, for example, if you go, you have to sit there quietly.
Yes,
if you're not going to sit there quietly, then don't go. I'm troubled by that, number one. But number two, I think what we loved to see last night at our counter-programming at the People's State of the Union, It's a very much younger group that was there, a lot more, quote, progressive. I hate using that label, but progressive caucus members. I think you saw a lot of people. I think you saw a lot of people of color from the Democratic Party that are saying, no, we are very forcefully making our way towards the front of the line. My concern is, I've said this before, I'll say it again. My concern is Democrats have the dog finally catching the car moment in November.
Yes.
We win in November 2026, and then everybody stands there just kind of looking at each other like, okay, well, do we just have a meeting now? And what do? We have to have a plan from day one. Because if you do not actually have accountability hearings from day one, then what was the whole point of all of this? Because you know there's going to be a battle by along the way. Remember when we had power and they ignored your congressional subpoenas? And Steve Bannon now, and everybody else, Peter Navarro.
Now they're subpoenaing Bill and Hillary Clinton.
Exactly. Love that. Love Katie Fang and Mehdi Hasan. Thought that was great and wanted to play one more. This is Congressman Jared Huffman, I believe his name is. And I'm not sure when this is from, but this is exactly the way that elected leaders and everyone else should talk about Donald Trump. They should call him a madman.
And if we're real, if we're honest about what's going on, we have a madman in the White House who is running roughshod, who is running the biggest, most corrupt criminal grift in American history out of the White House, and you folks want to whistle right past the graveyard of democracy and our public lands and all of these values. We take an oath to the Constitution, and it seems that all of you took an oath to Donald Trump. And so you want to put his name on coins and buildings and park passes. You want to penalize people who cover up this shrine to Donald Trump that our park passes have been turned into. This is shameful. This is a disgrace. I would love to have a serious conversation about public lands, about recreation, about other things where we could do good work together. But pretend everything's just fine right now in the face of this. The madman right now is in Europe driving our friends into the arms of our adversaries. He's doing immeasurable damage to our credibility on the world stage, and you guys are just fine with it. What the hell is wrong here? What the hell is wrong? I'm not going to sit here and pretend everything is just fine for our public lands, for the agencies we depend on, for our democracy, for our credibility, for truth and justice and what's left of integrity. That's a disgrace. I'm not doing any justice to this committee or to the Explore Act or anything else to sit here and pretend everything is just fine and pat ourselves on the back for what we did a year ago. This is wrong. This is not normal, and I'm not going to normalize it. I yield back.
Yes, good stuff. Like the way that guy talks. Jared Huffman of California. I should invite him on. All right, now let's go to the governor of Kentucky that a lot of you love. Shout out to Martha. And who else loves that governor? Andy Beshear. He was asked about J.D. Vance. And Andy Beshear sounds like, a jolly G kind of Gomer Pyle-y nice guy. But he also hates J.D. Vance.
Hey, no one would work harder against J.D. Vance than me. A guy who made his money talking down about people in Kentucky that he doesn't fully understand. He called us lazy. He said addiction was our fault. He is wrong, and he should not be judging us or anyone else. He is the most conceited elected official that I've ever heard speak, and that's incredibly dangerous, because if you think you know it all, you're going to make some really bad decisions because you're not listening to some smart people you should put around you.
Yeah, he wants to run for president, specifically against J.D. Vance is what I'm getting from that. I liked it. All right, we'll end with some comedy. Started with Colbert. We'll end with Jimmy Kimmel from his monologue last night on Jimmy Kimmel Live on ABC.
Come up and get it. And while the statuettes were being handed out here in Hollywood, President Trump was hard at work on the golf course this weekend. We are now on week 3 of the war Trump claimed we won an hour after he started it. Operation Abstino Distracto has now cost American taxpayers more than $16 billion, and more importantly, the lives of 13 U.S. service members. Trump is desperate to convince anybody who'll listen that this had to be done, we had to attack, and that leaders who encourage violent acts against peaceful protesters are evil and must be stopped.
How important would it be to get out that besiege force, the thugs that walk the streets and the moral?
We could do
are we aiming for them?
No, these are bad people. They go out shooting protesters. You're a protester, they shoot you right through the head. This is an evil group of people.
Oh, now he's against shooting protesters. That's good. He's evolving. It's always his self-awareness that impresses me the most about Donald Trump. He's been talking very tough for a guy who seems to almost be in a coma right now. Over the weekend, he wrote, "Watch what happens to these deranged scumbags today. They've been killing innocent people all over the world for 47 years, and now I, as the 47th president, am killing them. What a great honor it is to do so. Thank you for your attention to this matter." In 3 months, he went from "Where's my Nobel Prize for Peace?" to "What a great honor it is to kill scumbags." Everything is his great honor. It was also his great honor to appear on ESPN, to defend Dennis Rodman, to sell digital trading cards, to win his own golf tournament, to join the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame, and now to kill people in Iran. And yet, even with all the killing he is enjoying so much, he is very low energy lately. He talks like he's a little drunk. He's slurring. He's sleepy. He's double-fisting Diet Cokes, all of which feels more glaring when his friends at Fox News nervously take his temperature on when this war of his might be over.
If Iran, as you said, totally obliterated, got the missiles, got the first 2 rounds of leadership, Air Force gone, Navy gone, can we wrap this war up this week?
Yeah, sure. I don't think so, but it'll be soon. Won't be long.
Grandpa's blood sugar is low. Will somebody get him a biscuit, please? I don't know if it's the stress from all his bad decisions or the fact that he's rage tweeting all night long and not getting any sleep, but he is spent. Trump phoned into a podcast hosted by his good little boy, Brian Kilmeade, who also wanted to gently nudge him towards when maybe do you think possibly we might know when this war might get wrapped up?
When are you going to know when it's over?
When I feel it.
Okay.
I feel it in my bones.
That's a problem. He uses his bones to feel things instead of his brain. He's a bonehead through and through. And the answer is he doesn't know when this war is going to be done. The only war Trump had an exit plan for was Vietnam. He's all over the place.
Yeah, there you go. Jimmy Kimmel on ABC, and that is it. That is the clip show, the headlines, the opening, the A block, A and B block. I don't know how I would produce it if I were going to talk about it with other people. It's just me producing it. I know what I have to do. That's the first part of the show, and I can't do it without you. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic, because Sean Nielsen says I should plug the paid subscription link before and after the news. So that's how I'm formatically trying to do it now, in case you haven't noticed. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. You can pay as little as $5 or as much as you want. And so thank you. That's how we fuel this show and my body. That's right. You're paying for my Costco membership. Okay, let's get to my friend Bill Boyle. Called him last night. We had a chat live in front of people. Over 150 people were there watching live. You can too if you follow me at YouTube or Substack at Stand Up with Pete. That's where I prefer having you watch me. But it also goes live on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram as well. Should be live on all of those platforms, most of my interviews. Not sure when I'm going live today yet, but you will see me if you subscribe to YouTube or Substack. It'll give you an alert if you set it to. All right, let's get to Bill Boyle. He's a business owner in Washington, D.C., but a real smart cat. Used to call the old show and was so smart when he called, we decided to make him a guest. And he's one of your favorites, partly because he doesn't have the incentives to make a career as a commentator and pundit, yet he loves joining us, and he's always taking in a lot of information. There's a lot of great sources and connections down there in D.C., a lot of great historical references, and a brain that soaks in a lot of shit and is able to regurgitate it real good. That's a really disrespectful way of presenting his style. I apologize, Bill. Follow him right now at Bill B in D.C. on Blue Sky. Let's do it. Lots to talk about with Bill. Wanted to cover the latest developments. It's really hard to keep track of it, and folks love Bill's analysis. I certainly do. Always enjoy our conversations. Good to see you. Happy Monday night. I know tomorrow's a big day for you, Irish.
No, tomorrow is Amateur Drinkers Day.
Oh, what do you, does St. Patrick's Day mean anything to you, being Irish?
Growing up, it was a Saints Day we went to church on.
Oh. Huh.
So, it was considered to be like a matter of pride, right? But it was, and when I was a teenager, of course, we all just got blotto, but it's not, in Ireland, it's not outside of Dublin, it's not, and outside of Belfast, it's not really a thing. Although I did see the Irish Belfast ukulele band, like the ukulele club, play a bunch of Smith's songs on their ukuleles for St. Patrick's Day, and that was kind of amazing in Belfast.
All right. Well, so some of them celebrate, and if those
Irish get creative with it.
To those who celebrate St. Patrick's Day on a Tuesday, have fun, be safe, and I think
no
everything.
Fucking green beer.
No green beer. All right. Well, lots to discuss with you today, and it would seem that obviously more and more developments over the weekend, and there seems to be an escalation, not a de-escalation. The rhetoric doesn't match the action, and this is different than so many of the other horrible stunts that this regime, our regime, has pulled, and that they're really not in control of it. It's seemingly lost. They've lost control. They've lost the plot. They're even getting more MAGA critics, I think, than they thought they would have, like Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and plenty of other influential people in that world. What are your thoughts here on day 18 or 19? Whatever.
It's been 18 days. My God. So basically what this war comes down to right now is that the White House is belatedly figuring out something that the Iranians and every previous American administration knew already, which is that it doesn't take much for the Iranians to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. They don't need to put 5,000 mines in it. They just need some mines in it. They just need to shoot some missiles at it. It's big mountainous terrain on the Iranian side, and it's a narrow place. Shipping companies, given the amount of money that these tankers are worth, aren't going to insure them unless they are pretty sure it's going to be okay. So what the Iranians knew this, previous American administrations knew this. The trouble gained by trying to fight Iran this way, the benefits gained by trying to fight the Iranians this way versus the trouble it causes is totally out of whack. It makes no strategic sense. And it's why no one ever was dumb enough to do this before. What's happening right now on the ground, or in the water, I guess I should say, is that Iran is just doing just enough to make sure no one puts their tankers through. Except the Iranian tankers themselves are being allowed through by the U.S. as well. Okay, and this gets at the, I just described the geographic issue of there being a narrow strait Iran can always screw around with. The bigger strategic perspective on this is Iran can survive without doing very much. It doesn't need that much to stay in the fight. Whereas if you're the U.S., world oil prices are getting crushed. And if you're an American president and you did something to make oil prices go up from $3 to $3.80 a gallon, you're politically screwed and you're strategically screwed. So the geopolitical reality is Iran has less to lose, more punishment it can dish out. The U.S. has more to lose, and after a while, you're bouncing rocks, right? You're pounding things that don't really matter with your air power. So what's happening right now is literally the Iranians are sending tankers out full of oil to India and China and elsewhere, and the U.S. must let that happen because they're terrified of oil prices going up much higher. And when you're fighting someone, but you dare not touch their oil tankers, and you can't send any of yours through that crucial spot, that means they're winning. That means they have the strategic advantage over you. And I'll tell you, the U.S., Trump went, I shouldn't even say the U.S., this is all Trump. Trump told everybody to go fuck themselves, all of our allies.
Right.
Launched this war that none of them wanted. And now he's basically saying, sorry guys, but fuck you, you should come and fix this. That in and of itself is just an insane.
It's you don't have to be a geopolitical analyst or a government expert to realize what is happening here, and that I guess it's hard to believe sometimes, but given we've gotten to know this lunatic pretty well, that there was no planning. There was no plan. The man, if we've said it once, we've said it 1,000 times, the man plans a script to control the day's news. He is doing a TV show every day. He doesn't care about tomorrow. And to highlight what you said, I saw this post on Blue Sky that guy said, I don't know who he is, but he said, why aren't other countries helping us with the Strait of Hormuz after we started an unjust war, cut off trade, and insulted them for a year?
Yeah, exactly. And, here's the thing. Italy and France are already negotiating with the Iranians. It would not be an unlikely outcome that the Iranians basically say to the French and the British and the Chinese and whoever, you guys are good to go. Keep bringing your oil in and out of Karg Island. You're getting our oil and bringing it out in your tankers. But American tankers and UAE and Oman and Jordan and anyone else, fuck them, we'll sink them.
The reason why those other Arab states are getting punished or bombed by Iran is because they're hosting American forces mainly. Is that the main issue there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of animosity going back for a very long time.
Sure.
These are Sunni-dominated, for the most part, states with often large Shiite populations in them, or relatively large Shiite populations. And Iran has constantly screwed with them. They've screwed with Iran going back decades. So since the Shah fell, and even before the Shah fell, honestly, Iran was always putting pressure on these Emirates to try to get things out of them because Iran is big and they're small. Well, in this case, the U.S. went and fought this war, started this war, and isn't even helping them. Like, these are our supposed allies. We drag them into this war, and they're just, they're taking it on the chin economically. They're being hit by shaheads, and the U.S., by the way, is refusing to give them any help with interdiction. It's just it's Trump in a nutshell, where it's all you give to him, and fuck you if you want anything back. It's Trump. It's Trumpism as like a world philosophy. And in the end, what it does is that anyone who looks at this says, no fucking way do I want to be the United States' ally as long as that guy is in charge.
Here are some of the responses rounded up by the folks at Midas Touch. World leaders to Trump after he begged them for help with the Strait of Hormuz. You started this mess, now deal with it. Japan's prime minister shut down the idea directly. Quote, we have not made any decisions whatsoever about dispatching escort ships. We are continuing to examine what Japan can do independently and what could be done within the legal framework. I don't know what that means. Australia also made it clear that they're staying out. We won't be sending a ship to the Strait of Hormuz. We know how incredibly important that is, but that's not something that we've been asked or that we're contributing to. It seems like they've been asked. South Korea signaled no commitment either, saying, we will communicate closely with the U.S. regarding this matter and make a decision after careful review. Even Britain, one of America's closest allies, is distancing itself from Trump's war. Prime Minister Keir Starmer said he would, quote, not be drawn into a wider Iran war while discussing alternative approaches to shipping security. Finally, across Europe, the response has been even colder. Germany's defense minister, Boris Pistorius, delivered perhaps the most blunt response. What does Trump expect from a handful of European frigates that powerful U.S. Navy cannot do? This is not our war. We have not started it. And Italy finally says diplomacy is the answer. Greece says it won't participate in military operations. And the European Union is discussing its existing naval mission, but is not expected to expand it to the Strait. So who's helping?
Nobody's helping, and they shouldn't. They didn't create the situation. Trump did. Trump's going to have to get out of it. I mean, that's it. It's this weird idea, like Trump is saying, well, we were there for NATO for years and years and years, and now NATO isn't coming back and helping us. But he was literally like a week ago saying, we don't need those pussies, screw that, right? And,
also, NATO is generally a defense organization defending against threats. They're not an offensive.
Right. And, this is not a NATO theater thing in the first place.
Right.
But I'll tell you something, 10 years ago, if this war had started in any way unlike the way Trump started it, they would have all been helping. They often did for decades help American administrations in the Persian Gulf. The only reason they're not is that Trump runs everything like a protection racket. And when he tries to squeeze you, if you don't punch him in the nose, he just comes back for more.
But isn't there in the history of wars and battles and armed conflict and even trade negotiations, aren't talks constantly occurring to create coalitions of countries so that that you're not going it alone? Because going it alone is a bad idea for all kinds of reasons. Like, this seems very unilateral in a way that the U.S. even hasn't done on almost anything.
No, the U.S. has never behaved like this in your lifetime or mine. In fact, I don't think the U.S. has behaved like this ever. You have this weirdo creep as president who doesn't fundamentally cannot understand the idea of what an alliance is. It just doesn't sink in with him that there's give and take, and that there's benefits that are not immediately financial or military from an alliance system. And by the way, NATO is the perfect example of that. Europe had two really incredibly terrible wars between 1914 and 1945. NATO stopped that. Trump doesn't see it that way. No, Trump doesn't even see like the benefit of putting money into something that basically keeps the most developed place in the world settled. It just doesn't occur to him. It's not tangible. Trump is a person without any imagination. Right? I mean, that's a really, like, I think it's important for people to realize that about him. He doesn't have, like, object permanence doesn't exist for him. If it's not right in front of him, if he's not getting something from it tangible, if he's not, able to, enforce his ego on somebody, then it doesn't really exist. And he can't believe, like, to him, it's shocking. After shitting on our allies for a year, it's shocking to him that they're saying no. And by the way, like, it's shocking to him at 4:00 in the afternoon. At 7, he probably doesn't even remember it. We're not dealing with a normal person who can who goes from, gather information, come to a conclusion, then have a policy. That's not him. And we have a government that does that extraordinarily well, but they have managed to destroy that process with Hegseth in charge of the Defense Department. And Trump at the White House. There's no adults here. And if people think someone's coming to save these guys, it's certainly not Dan Kane, who is a respectable figure at the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. But they're leaking to blame him now.
Really?
Yeah, they're leaking. They're saying, well, Trump. It's leaked today that Trump said to Kane, "Well, you didn't tell me this was going to happen." Alongside leaks that were like Kane 100% told him what was going to happen, and Trump just blew it off. So there's the competing leaks going on right now. And I can tell you, I know people who know Dan Kane. 100% he said, this will be bad.
Of course he did. There was reporting that they got in a pretty heated argument, and that
CIA pushed back, Pentagon pushed back.
Against Trump's
doing this.
Insane madman tendencies. I'm so tired of psychoanalyzing this man's madness every day as a way to try to figure out why he is doing such insane things. But that's continues to be where we're at.
There's a book out right now called The First Fascist about a guy named Marquis Moretz. And he is a great example of like a late 19th century sort of the kind of people that were part of Vichy France or Nazi Germany or whatever. There's this really interesting thing about it. If Moretz had not been killed by Bedouins in North Africa, good for them, in the late 19th century, exactly that kind of guy, the fantasist who stumbles from one disaster to the next, and Hitler was a similar kind of guy. Mussolini was a similar kind of guy. Their absurdity is part of the actual political movement because their clownishness and their inability for anyone to take them very seriously is why they're able to slip from one thing to the next. Their lack of shame. If Trump was in any way a normal person, he'd be waking up every morning and saying to himself, Jesus, why the fuck did I do this? And he's not. He's just blaming you, me, the world, the French, China, everybody else.
You're closely watching oil. What's the latest?
So it eased a little today, but it's still bad. I mean, it's still in the 90s per barrel for Brent crude. I know that the Singapore jet fuel spot price the other day was 200. And that's the thing, by the way, that people don't just look or don't just believe that because the barrel of oil might ease a little bit into the 80s, back up to the 90s, back to the 80s, that's the whole story. Because where oil gets really expensive is in the refined products from it. So diesel, for instance, is much higher. It's $5 a gallon here versus $3 and change, $3.80. Jet fuel is extremely expensive. It's the refined products that come from it are not exponentially more expensive, but they are significantly more expensive than just what you're seeing in a barrel of Brent crude.
Main ingredient, or primary ingredient in fertilizer. There's all these second, third
Great
order.
example. Fertilizer is up 30 some odd % in the Midwest right now and going higher.
I'm surprised it's not higher, but I have no idea how this or any of these markets work. But anybody predicting, what are the best experts predicting about the next couple of weeks? I mean,
so each week that it goes on, the ripple effects get bigger. And if, it's now March, if this is still happening in June, gas prices are crazy for the rest of the summer into the fall. So, because there's going to be some work to figure out ways around this problem. But I mean, we were in the 60s per barrel before this, and if we're in the 80s all the way through the summer, that's unbelievable amount of inflation, fully, obviously, clearly, and directly inflation out of every American's pocketbook, and globally too. I mean, it's not. It's inflation at the gas tank. It's inflation food because fertilizer is so much higher. It costs the country money because a lot more farmers are going to go bankrupt this year. And you're going to have all of those, the knock-on effects of that. The diesel being more expensive, obviously delivery of everything gets more expensive, right? We're a country that lives on trucking. So what he's done is he's, in his inept genius, he has picked a fight that affects the one thing that will make his worst issue even worse. He has picked energy to fuck up. And again, if you're the Iranians, and the Iranians said today, like Trump said that they were talking to him, the Iranians were like, that's absolute bullshit. We're not talking. And the Iranians are openly saying, we've got no reason to stop now. So, and do you see Trump as someone who can go and make some sort of deal? We've already bombed and attacked the Iranians twice in the last 12 months while we were negotiating with them.
Our word
so
is
if you're the Iranians,
gone.
why would you give up? Why would you give up? It's strategically moronic. And one thing about the Iranian government, they suck, but they're never irrational. They've never been irrational about their nuclear program, about their foreign policy or whatever. I hate their aims, and I think they malign aims, but they're not irrational. And they can look at what's happening right now just as easily as I can and say, you're winning, right? Or I shouldn't say winning, because this is really both losing. Iran is getting pounded. But the Iranian leadership knows that either they get some sort of final deal done by really sticking in and making the Strait of Hormuz very difficult for a long time, or this just happens to them next year.
Have you been paying attention to Israel's invasion of Lebanon? They're pounding Lebanon. 800,000 people displaced, like 1,000 people dead. Why? I mean, I guess the timing is one reason why, but they think we already thought.
Bibi is aiming to consolidate Greater Israel while he has the chance. There's a couple things going on here. He always was somebody who advocated clearing out the Arabs from Israel, from near Israel, from the West Bank, from Gaza, from southern Lebanon, and making Israel like its biblical size. And I think that that's purely what's happening here. It's that he sees the opportunity to do this with an American administration that isn't paying attention and can barely tie its own shoes. And remember, the war's end, Bibi's gone. Bibi loses that office, he goes to jail.
Some people say that's why he's
bizarre setup where it's totally worth it for him personally. Yeah. And Bibi very famously never gives a shit about anything but Bibi. So
I saw one analysis that a lot of people think that he's continued these wars and even potentially fueled them in different ways so that he could stay in power and not be prosecuted, which is such a parallel to Trump, your Bolsonaro, Orban. Like there's authoritarians now and forever that conduct these kinds of horrible wars and actions to distract from or prevent themselves from ever facing any kind of accountability or justice.
Yeah, it's what I said to you last week or the week before, that Italy under Mussolini invaded Ethiopia for that exact same reason, right? If the French had stopped Hitler, from taking back the Rhineland, Hitler would have been done, and World War II never would have happened, right? This is a very classic thing, and people should really, be aware. What Trump's doing with Iran is a classic expression of authoritarian consolidation. It's not helping him consolidate power because he screwed it up. The key to these folks is short, quick, and victorious. This is neither going to be short or quick or victorious. So,
what do you make of all of the analysis of how many weapons that either side have, how many interceptors Israel have? There's reports they're almost out, or the U.S.'s Patriot missile or Tomahawk missile stock, or any of the other stock. Obviously, Iran in terms of their drones. Yeah. How do you analyze? How do you know that if there's any credibility to any analyst who's looking at the stockpiles that any Iran, Israel, or the U.S. has, and know that it's actually true?
Well, there's a saying, actually. I love this saying. It's that ammunition is expensive until it's virtually fucking priceless. And I think that some of the analysts I see, I don't necessarily, like CNN, who cares? Don't watch it for that. It's not what they're going to tell you. Or they'll have some guy who's been out of the military for 30 years telling you what's what. But certainly there's reports that the UAE, Oman, Bahrain, those countries are running lower. At the same time, there are fewer Iranian Shaheds and missiles coming over because Israel and the U.S. are trying to find every launch site possible to hit them. I don't think that's all that important in the big picture, because the important thing is that Iran can continue to interdict the Strait of Hormuz. Everything else, you hit an apartment building in Doha, that sucks, but that's not the war. The war is the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians are clearly competent enough to understand that. So what they're doing is they're sending fewer shots at Israel, at the Gulf states, but they're making sure that it's really clear that they can drop more. Like Iran, by the way, has been fairly restrained, interestingly, about the mines they put into the Strait of Hormuz. I told you the other day, I thought it was like 1,000 mines. From what I'm understanding, that's actually wrong. They're putting just enough in to make sure that the insurance companies won't insure ships, but they're not trying to cut it off completely. And that is, that's really smart, because it lets other countries say, okay, well, if the Iranians will tell us, say, where we can get in and out, we'll make a deal with the Iranians. And that, I think that's what matters. I don't think the shortages are as important as people say they are. I also don't think that our posture vis-a-vis Taiwan and China is all that in danger. I don't think China's at all ready to go after Taiwan. And, something that no one ever talks about, something like 70% of the top positions in the People's Liberation Army, and China, by the way, confusingly has a thing called the People's Liberation Army Navy, which I think shows a lack of imagination, but they've purged like 70% of their leadership. The Chinese military is not in any shape to try to go 70 kilometers across an ocean and attack Taiwan.
There was reports from Politico and other outlets. Taiwan reports large-scale Chinese military aircraft presence near the island. Yeah, that was
kind of bullshit.
But that was kind of bullshit, that story, huh?
What happened is that they stopped for a week or so, and then they started again. And that was taken as an escalation. China's been doing this for
normal activity is what it's being called.
Yeah, I mean, it's slightly abnormal activity is what I would call it. I mean, the week that they didn't do anything was really abnormal. So I'm sure there's some complicated signaling, or maybe it was just a training cycle, right? I mean, who knows? But I think that people overread that situation quite a bit.
I want to play something. There were some super strange things. I rarely play Trump on the show. I do watch him a lot of his speeches, a lot of his press conference, and a lot of it. But I want to try to play this for you and everybody, because today he was asked about Cuba, and he said that he's going to take Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the clip.
Tourism and everything else, it's a beautiful island. I think Cuba, I don't know, in its own way, if tourism and everything else, it's a beautiful island. Great weather. They're not in a hurricane zone, which is nice for a change, They won't be asking us for money for hurricanes every week. But I think Cuba's seen the end. You know, all my life I've been hearing about the United States and Cuba. When will the United States do it? I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. That'd be good. That's a big honor.
Taking Cuba.
Taking Cuba in some form, yeah. Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I could do anything I want with it. You want to know the truth? They're a very weakened nation right now. They were for a long time. Very violent leaders. I think Cuba, I don't know, is in its own way.
So the thing about that is everybody predicted that because Venezuela was its benefactor, Cuba would go bankrupt, and that's the cheapest way to say it. But they're a huge supporter, obviously, of Cuba. And then he obviously threw us a curve and started a war in Iran, didn't want to wait for Cuba. But it's pretty clear that the conventional wisdom is that the Venezuela mission made him think, and the Iran bombing back in December, that he could do anything he wants. He's always thought that about himself.
He literally just said it right there.
But he just said, I'm going to take it. You even heard Fox News' Peter Doocy, you're going to take it? No. Has anybody, when was the last time an authoritarian leader said he's going to take another sovereign country? He said it twice. And I it's so nauseating to hear somebody, in this case me, say, you'd think that'd get more coverage. I think you hear more about that, but still.
I'll tell you, actually, I listened to Marjorie Taylor Greene excoriating that today. This is not... Trump's approval for the war in Iran was 41% 2 weeks ago. I'd be curious where it is now. And Trump has turned into the ultimate neocon, which is wild because Trump's whole point, as far as Republicans were concerned, was to get away from the neocons. And yet Trump is worse than any other neocon that's ever been. And I think it's a fascinating thing that he just is so unmoored from reality that and by the way, he may do it. He may overthrow the Cuban government. And what's going to happen if we overthrow the Cuban government? Is there going to be a ton of American aid going to Cuba from the highly organized and well-planned Trump administration operation? Of course not. It'll be a fucking basket case that Trump will fuck up even more than it's fucked up. And, then he'll toddle off into the sunset saying, I won Cuba.
But just to be clear,
the best possible scenario for him, it'll be a disaster for everyone else.
Can we just go back and unpack again? I'm going to take Cuba. Putin,
because he sees this all
Putin did not say, I'm going to take Ukraine. No, no one does. No one says, I'm going to take another country. So overtly, they do it. They attempt it. But they don't overtly say, I'm going to take that country. And for an American president to say that, I just want to spend, I just want everybody to see that and draw their own conclusions. Yeah. I'm going to take that country? What?
I will tell you that guys like Ulysses S. Grant were incredibly formed by the fact that the U.S. war with Mexico, that Grant and Lee and a bunch of these other guys fought in the 1840s. Grant, for the rest of his life, said that was the most disgusting thing ever. This would be exactly that. This would be a defining experience for a generation of younger Americans who would just spend the rest of their lives going, fuck this, fuck these guys, fuck that party. That was awful. Because they are not going to they're not going to, quote unquote, liberate Cuba. They want Cuba to pillage Cuba. He wants beachfront property. He wants billions of dollars of assets from it. This is pillage. This is not. You notice the word he didn't use in that discussion. He never used the word democracy. He doesn't give a shit. We left the Chavistas in power in Venezuela. In Iran, Trump was literally saying, no, we want the Republican Guards to run things. They're smart, right? This is totally grotesque, transactional, oligarchic dictatorship behavior. And they're all going to burn in hell. But I got to say, even the fascists had something they believed in.
Right.
Was it racist, awful, gross? Of course. But at least they actually had something they believed in. The Soviets really did believe in the perfectibility of man. Right? Trump, what does Trump believe in? Trump That's what he believes in.
That's it.
Aggrandizing his own 10-year-old fucking boy ego. And that's it. And, he is, I don't get too bent out of shape talking about his psychology because I don't really talk about it anymore. I'm a lot more interested in the kind of people who still support him.
Their
Because
psychology.
if you're still, like, the mask is fully off. He obviously doesn't give a shit about regular people. He obviously is totally about hooking up his family. The things that people said about Hunter Biden and corruption related to him, like Donald Trump Jr. does that every morning before he gets out of bed.
Yes.
I mean, the scale of the corruption and bullshit with these people is unbelievable. And if you're still voting for him, if you still think that this is okay, you're a sad and pathetic person. And I wish you would move to Russia or somewhere else because you don't fucking deserve a democracy. That's just true. I mean,
do you think
if you're so benighted and stupid that you think that the Republicans and Donald Trump are doing anything for you, like they hated Biden for inflation, they made it worse. They hated Biden for fighting foreign wars. They're fighting way more foreign wars and dumber. They hated Biden for supposedly Hunter's corruption. They are so beyond orders of magnitude more corrupt than Hunter Biden ever was. If they hated the government for telling them what to do, we literally have a Republican Party right now and a White House that wants to say women can't vote unless they have their they can't vote under their married name unless they
the safe act.
Go through all kinds of hoops to prove
it would disenfranchise a lot of Republicans too if they were past that.
These are disgusting people, obviously so. And if you still vote for them, I'm sorry, you are a fucking idiot.
This war has taken over the headlines for the entire almost 3 weeks since it was stupidly started. It does seem to be dividing MAGA world, at least if you think that, like I do, that the most influential commentators carry a lot of weight, and I do. And Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and others Joe Rogan are very much against this war in Iran, and a lot of them positioning it as being Israel's war, and it's their interest, and they dragged us in, and we're fighting their war for them. And I wonder what you think, if that splits the Republican Party, the MAGA movement more, and if that's a question. We've been asking this question a lot, but I mean, I think it's a fair and important question, that they're either split or they're apathetic or they're no longer on the train. They don't vote at all. They vote for Democrats. I don't know. What are your thoughts about how this war is splitting the MAGA movement and Trump's following?
So I think that a lot of these people are looking at 2029 and saying, what's the world going to be like? What's American politics going to be like when this crazy old man has shuffled off his mortal coil and is gone from the scene? And I think that for someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think she is smarter than I thought she was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, well, she's calculating.
Because she's coming out to oppose this stuff. She is not doing, like Tucker Carlson very much edges into anti-Semitism. She's not doing that. She's going around going like, this isn't what MAGA was supposed to be about. Like, she's reminding people of what they were claiming they were for 5 years ago. Fascist movements, proto, semi, demi, whatever version of fascist movements you want to call this, they always have really intense factional fights below the surface. And I think that's exactly what's happening here, where, it's the SA versus the SS, right? Where it's the different tendencies they're okay when the leader is strong enough and he can bind them together and keep them from going off in disparate directions. Once he starts to lose touch, once he starts to kind of get too old, maybe to like get on the phone at 4 a.m. with everybody, they start to shoot off in their own directions. And I think that's just a fairly simple version of what's happening here. I think there was always going to be somebody at this stage in Trump's political trajectory. There was always going to be a faction that started to break off. And I don't think it's that surprising it's happening here. And by the way, it'll get worse as time goes on.
On Monday, our dear leader claimed that he spoke to a former U.S. president about the U.S. military strikes in Iran. Shortly thereafter, representatives for every single living president denied such a conversation had taken place.
Yeah, I mean, All of them didn't do it when they all could have. So what the fuck does he think? Like, that's just but again, Trump is he has no shame and he has no sense of reality other than reality that helps him or fits what he wants to believe. So that shouldn't surprise anybody that he's just lying through his teeth about every conversation about this.
What else? What's next? What are you looking for? What are you watching? Who are you reading? What are you thinking about the region, the partners, the Gulf states? I mean, what did I just see it at Drudge clickbait? Like Dubai is over or some shit. I mean,
yeah. Well, Dubai was always where British expats went not to pay any taxes. So there's a lot of schadenfreude from British people about that. But I think what's next is the slow realization in the White House that they caught the bumper of the bus and they need to figure out how to let go of it. And I'm not sure they're going to have an easy time doing that.
I think that's a pretty fair and accurate prediction. Yeah. Wow. It seems to be coming apart in a lot of different ways. Oh, look at Greg Bovino is retiring, the little Keebler elf Nazi guy.
Oh yeah, well, since he won an Academy Award last night, his third, from what I understand.
Oh, so great. Sean Penn. You're referring to Sean Penn's portrayal of
indeed,
him, basically. Yeah. Sean Penn skipped the Oscars to hang out with Volodymyr Zelensky.
You've won 2 Oscars already. What's a third?
It's a pretty fucking badass move, though.
That's true. Oh, hey, you know what? Sean Penn irritates me in many ways, but his support for Ukraine, 100% legit. Good stuff.
Susie Wiles has breast cancer, but she's going to keep working. Trump's chief of staff.
I mean, how could you not get cancer if you were stuck with Trump every day?
Everybody that has ever worked
the man is
around him, his breath.
Tumor.
His breath.
In the middle of our republic.
Did you see he gave a bunch of people shoes and
Florsheim shoes, and they're too freaked out. Like, think about how fucking crazy this is. This reminds me, there's a story, by the way, about Stalin, where Stalin would go and give these party Congress meetings, pep talks, and there'd always be KGB or GRU or whatever guys sitting around watching the audience to protect the leader. And Stalin, before he left, he generally, like, I am Comrade Stalin, mustache, the whole deal. And I'm telling everybody, like, this is what the next 5-year plan is going to be and everything else. And everybody would applaud uproariously, right? Because if you didn't, right? Well, Stalin, though, used to, before he walked out the room, he'd go, okay, that's enough, thank you. And he would leave. And that was a signal for everybody to stop clapping. Well, the one time Stalin forgot to say, everybody relax, don't worry, goodbye. He walks out, everyone's clapping, and there's no one to tell him to stop. And there's security goons leaning against the wall staring at everybody. And so they kept clapping and clapping and clapping for minutes on end because no one knew how to stop without being told they could, until one guy finally stopped. And then everyone else did. And there's people claiming the story is apocryphal. I don't think it's apocryphal. That guy ended up going to the gulag. Because the guards said, hey, Yuri Popov over there, he stopped first, get him out of here. So Trump has been buying Florsheim shoes, which are shit shoes, by the way. I'm sorry, Florsheim. I don't know if they're a sponsor, Pete, but if they are, I apologize. But he's buying them these black Florsheim dress shoes, but he's guessing their shoe size. And so Marco, who probably wears like a 4.5, is like in like 6s. And these guys are too afraid to just go and get a fucking black Florsheim that fits you. Instead, they're all walking around in the president's shoes that don't fit.
Is that real? Is that real? Like, there's pictures of
that is real. Oh, there's pictures of people's feet where they're swimming.
Their shoes are baggy on them.
And Trump said it's such a classic dictator thing to do. Because dictators love the petty shit. Stalin used to make guys sit up at night and drink endlessly with him and watch American cowboy movies. Hitler used to do the same thing, make his whole staff stay up all night watching movies with him. It's by making people do these really like sort of intimate personal things, it's a way to really enforce your control over them. Well, in Trump's cabinet, Trump said this was to foster unity. Hey, Pete, I got you some Florsheim. Here you go.
Ugh.
And then, they're like too small for you, but you crash your feet in them. because you don't want the boss to see that you're wearing brown Cole Haan.
Such a cuck. So bad.
Oh, but it's like it's such a classic dictator thing to do. And you can go look online, guys. It's all over Blue Sky and Twitter. Marco, like this much room behind the back of his heel. And
hilarious. Someone should ask him about it.
No, I'm sure. Yeah. Sure. Marco will say, he'll click his heels and say, mein Führer bought me Florsheim. So.
The least important question is a political analysis of the heir apparent and whether it's Marco Rubio or J.D. Vance, which a lot of people have their money on one of the two of them. They're both going to be connected to this wasteful, awful, terrible war that they signed on to. And that can't be helping them in the future, I'm guessing, if we're all still here.
I think that it would be difficult to find another pair of less appealing psychophants.
Yeah.
And maybe Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham's up there for sure. But I just think it'll end up, I don't think it matters which one it is. I think they get absolutely blown out in the next presidential election. Maybe if you put Rubio on Vance's shoulders and they can put a big trench coat on and try to be one candidate. But they're just going to get absolutely fucking slaughtered and go down into ignominy and bad odor for the rest of history.
All right. Thank you very much, as always. Really fascinating and interesting analysis. Always love talking to you.
Happy St. Pat's.
All right, there you go. Bill B in D.C. Go follow him on Blue Sky. Often joins us at our hangouts. Always love to have him hold court there and argue with him, ask questions. If you disagree, he's always good for it. So join us at our hangout Thursday night. Be a subscriber, patreon.com/PeteDominic. Write a rating review. Give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts. That would be great if you did that today. And that is all I've got for you. That's it. Go listen to John Carroll. Stream his music. Buy at johncarroll.org. Thank you, Bumblebees, for listening all the way to the end. Send me your feedback, criticism, compliments, notes, ideas, anything you want. StandUpWithPete@gmail.com. Be the change you want to see in the world. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
So long, you got the creaky knees. You got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up. Stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. This is the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't in sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it good now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll